Grace and guns, the African American church response to civil unrest. John Mbiti, an African philosophical theologian, said, and I quote, "Whatever happens to the individual happens to the whole group. And whatever happens to the whole group happens to the individual. The individual can only say, 'I am,' because we are. And since we are, therefore I am." The idea of grace and guns may appear to be a contradiction in terms. However, the alarming reality is that many urban pastors in America have recently had the unfortunate responsibility of burying far too many youth killed by gun violence. As a bishop in Southwest Louisiana, I have had to eulogize far too many victims of senseless killings. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Louisiana leads the nation with the highest gun death rate of 18.91% per 100,000 residents. The contributing factor for these numbers is weak gun laws and high gun ownership. The involvement that I have had with the impact of Dr. William Pennell upon my life was to read segments of his book that related to parts of my dissertation. Reflections on Coming Race Wars. Dr. Pennell stated, and I quote, "White America, especially evangelicals, operate in a system that vocally desires to be integrated, but subtly wishes to retain its white dominance. This is apparent in the media, in politics, in the growing incidence of violence, and in church and parachurch circles as well. During the 1992 riots, I reported that the world witnessed an ethnically diverse community sputter out of civil control and erupted into bedlam. Following the controversial acquittal of 4 Los Angeles police officers for use of excessive force in the subduing of African-American motorist Rodney King, residents of South Central Los Angeles literally burned a destructive path of disapproval through their community. Statistics reveal that 21% of individuals killed by guns in 2010 were under the age of 25, totaling more than 6,500 deaths. Small-town America is not exempt from violent crimes against African American youth. As I stated, a 22-year-old was shot while handcuffed. As I conclude, when we talk about grace and guns, this young man who was killed while handcuffed has his family now continuing to grieve over the loss of his life, and they're still waiting for justice. I mentioned the 28-year-old female who ended her life. We understand that suicide is the leading cause of death among gay and lesbian youth. We're told that 30% of gay youth attempt suicide near the age of 15. Gays and lesbians are 2 to 6 times more likely to commit suicide than heterosexuals. Almost half of the gay and lesbian teens state that they attempted suicide more than once. It has been conservatively estimated that 1,500 gay and lesbian youth commit suicide every year. In reference to coming race wars, the words of activist and Professor Cornel West, there's no doubt that once again we have to deal with the vicious legacy of white supremacy. Once again, we have to raise the question, if our dear brother Michael Brown were a precious white youth killed in Newton, Connecticut, or a precious Jewish youth killed in Westchester, New York, would the president, Congress, legal system respond in the same way with him being a precious young black brother from Ferguson? It's interesting that West said the American system is an abysmal failure when it comes to keeping track of the humanity of the black poor and black boy youth. Recent racial tension and race crimes have led to more questions about what is really happening with race relations in America. How do we prepare for race wars in urban centers in the United States? I conclude with this. There is a redemptive approach that is offered by a scholar, a pastor by the name of David Anderson. His response to racism is graceism. In his book by that title, Graceism, he gives 7 sayings of a gracist, not a racist. And he connects that with the passage in 1 Corinthians 12 and verses 23 through 26 that I read earlier. He says that there are 7 sayings of a gracist. Number 1, I will lift you up. I will give you special honor. I choose to lift up the humble among us. Number 2, he says, if we're going to answer racism with gracism, he says the second thing that needs to happen is that I will cover you. I will protect the most valuable among us from embarrassment. Number 3, I will share with you, where no special treatment will be given, but only to know that one cares. Number 4, I will honor you. God gives honor to the humble. The question is, will we? Number 5, I will stand with you. From the biblical perspective, there's no division in the body of Christ. Should not be division in the body of Christ. Number 6, I will consider you. And as he concludes, he says, number 7, I will celebrate you. The answer to racism could be gracism. How do we express that gracism? Accountability, reconciliation, and love. I believe that we at Fuller and we in the clergy have a responsibility to address the hard, difficult questions of how do we stem back the violence that affects our churches. Is there such a thing as grace and guns? God bless you.